So I will disclaimer that I have a cat and a dog. So they may come into this screen at some point or get mad at each other. So I apologize in advance. Um, so yeah, do you see a yellow mark on the screen, or is that just me? Does anyone else see that?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know where that's from, but all right, I'm gonna keep going. So yeah, we're going to be talking about herbal tea gardens today, something I'm very, very passionate about. My name is Tamarya Sims, and I am the Community Farm Associate for Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy, their community farm, and that is a mouthful. So sometimes we call ourselves SAHC. Oh, there we go. All right, so our agenda for today is I'm going to talk about who I am, my work at my job, and my work in the community outside of my full-time job. I'm going to talk about the nonprofit I work for. I'm going to talk about what is tea, because the word tea actually means a lot of different things, or a couple different things. We're going to do a recap on plant parts, quick fun fact, I've never taken botany, so that's a thing. And when you're starting your own plants, we're going to talk about what to grow in, what options you have. I'll give you a little tour of my herbal garden, and then we'll get into the meat of the things. So I'll take a break after the herbal garden and ask if there's any questions about any of that stuff, and then we're going to get into the bulk of it, which is the herbal plants and their benefits. And then commonly foraged plants, things that I don't think folks should grow because they're everywhere. And then precautions about just ingesting these plants in general. Cool. So this is a photo of me. I am harvesting hawthorn berries on a friend's land. I love to make hawthorn jelly, so that's a thing. So my name's Tamarya Sims. I use pronouns she and they. I am a UNC Asheville graduate of class of 2018, and my degree was in environmental studies with a concentration in ecology and field biology. And within that ecology, I really delved into plant ecology because I actually went into school wanting to be a zoologist, but I have a learning disability, and I never thought that I would make it through biology and those big books. So I got into plants. A lot of classes were like semester specific, so it just happened to be all plant classes that semester. And then I took wildcrafting, which got me into herbalism. So that's kind of my background. I'm also a certified North Carolina environmental educator. So a lot of my work post-college has been environmental education. I worked at the Park Service in the Smokies. I worked for a educational farm in Durham, and now I am working on a community farm. So that's a lot of fun. I do a lot of food justice work. My life work is something I want to do within food justice, getting people food, and food justice for me also means plant medicine and herbalism, because everything we ingest is affecting our body. So food is medicine as well as plants. It's just all encompassing. So I do some community work around that. Last season, I was growing food for donation for the community with Bountiful Cities. And I'm always networking to see where free plants are or free food and getting them to folks who need them, and working at Black community gardens in Asheville. Some other ways that I like to describe myself are I'm a farmer, an herbalist, a beekeeper, an educator, also a chickeneer, which I forgot to put that on there. I'm about to retire the chickens because they're a lot of work and I already have a lot of other things going on. But I also love beekeeping. I beekeep for education, not for profit. I just love to teach about how basically pollinators give us our food, And it's really easy to use honeybees because we can, as humans, we can manipulate them and keep them in a box, which is hard for more native pollinators. So those are some of the things that I like to do. I also just love to teach people how to grow their own food. My target audience is Black and Brown communities. And so my motto is growing food is a weapon. And I want to teach Black and Brown folks how to grow their own food so that they can have that weapon just in case anything happens. And just because we should all be self-sufficient and sustainable. And yeah. This yellow line is driving me insane. I'm going to see if I can erase it. Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay, so we're back. And I'm going to X out of this. All right. So the organization that I work for, my full-time job is Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. I got to meet them through some work they did with being Black and Brown in the outdoors with the Black Alaskan, Daniel White. So that's how I came to know them. And I was very interested in what they had to do. And this is before I knew I wanted to be like a real deal farmer. So whenever I talk about them, I say the first bullet point, land trust that preserves land in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. But our mission is to conserve the unique habitat and animal habitat, clean water, farmland, which is how I come into this, scenic beauty, and places for all people to enjoy outdoor recreation in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, enduring for future generations. We achieve this through long-term conservation relationships with private landowners and public agencies and owning and managing land. We are committed to creating and supporting equitable, healthy, and thriving communities for everyone in our region. And so how I come into that is through the community farm, which I could take all day to show you photos of the community farm, but it was donated to the organization from the Anderson family, and it is in Alexander, North Carolina, which is about 15 minutes from West Asheville. Also, I talk very country, so it gets to me sometimes, so sorry, you guys. So the community farm is an educational site and working farm located in Alexander. It provides a continually evolving home for conservation projects and agricultural production. The 140-acre community farm started with generous donations of over 100 acres of farmland in 2010, and now hosts the sites of our farm incubator program. I help with supporting the incubator farmers. They're farmers who want to start their business. They come to us and lease the land for very cheap and start their farm business. We also have an education center and a commercial kitchen. And we also provide a nationally recognized model for environmental friendly land management and productive agriculture. So if you want to keep an eye out for things happening on the farm, you can reach out to me, and you can volunteer on the farm, or hopefully we'll be doing hikes. We have a 2-mile trail. You can see the vegetables, the cows, the bees, our stream. We have a lot of stuff going on at the farm. We have poop houses. We have a wedding venue on the farm. So there's a lot of cool stuff at the farm. So I'm going to take a drink right quick because I'm talking a lot, and I'm going to slow down. So that's the thing. So I just realized I could have put a picture of this tea plant I'm about to talk about. So, because I have it. So what is tea? So tea, when we say tea, it usually refers to Camellia sinensis. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And so that plant is known for being black tea, green tea, white tea, oolong. So I think if you cook it at different temperatures, you get different teas or something like that. And so when we say tea, that's what we mean as tea, is like black tea or those other teas. So when you get into herbalism and like science, words matter, unfortunately. So we have a lot of definitions that I'll try to bring to the forefront because, yeah, so if you order tea, you might not get Yes, did someone say something? Okay. Cool. I also wanted to start by saying that I'm no scholar. I meant to say that in my about me. So I am not a certified herbalist. I'm an amateur herbalist. I do a lot of this work on my own. I've done programs via the internet. And so I'm not really, I have a learning disability. So there's going to be a lot of big words that I'm just going to glaze over. And if there's something that you want to study more, you should do that. But I just put them on our screen just in case anyone else knows those words. And yeah, they can do what they want with that information. So yeah, I wanted to say that before I get into all these scientific names, which is the thing. So in this workshop, when we say tea, we actually mean an herbal infusion or an herbal decoction. So those are fancy herbalist words for leaves, flowers soaked in hot water, which is an infusion, or roots boiled in hot water, which is a decoction. And this was something that really confused me in the beginning because no one sat me down and said just these words, because there's a lot of words that mean tea and it's so confusing. So if you ever see decoction or infusion, it still means tea. It's just putting different parts of the plant in hot water, which is so confusing, let me tell you. And then we also have tisane, which means herbal tea. So that's another word you might see when you're Googling plants or on some herbalist websites. So yeah, there's a lot of different words. If you're ever on like Jeopardy or something, maybe that will be useful to you, knowing all those words. And then I just wanted to mention the difference between using dry and fresh herbs to make tea. So generally, you have a measure, you can like Google how much. I am pretty aware of what I am drinking. So I use more herbs sometimes than what is prescribed, I guess I could say, on like a website. But I know what herbs can get me in trouble. So there are some herbs that you'll see in this PowerPoint or presentation today that are emetic, yes, which means they make you vomit. So those are some of the herbs you do not want to take in bulk. And one of those plants is lobelia. And I do not have that in my PowerPoint today because I do not feel comfortable teaching someone about lobelia. So it's really important to like know what plant you're using and like what it's going to do to your body. So dry herbs you can use less of, but what fresh herbs you usually use twice as much. And some plants are preferred just dry. So that's a thing. But when you get into your journey, then that's something you can figure out on the way. But most of these herbs are pretty common and won't hurt too much if you drink too much of it. So we're going to do a plant parts recap. So I've done a lot of garden education, and I usually do education with youth. So excuse me if I talk to you like you're in kindergarten, but like that's the best way to talk to kids, you know, talk to someone like they're in kindergarten. It's just like assuming people don't know anything, and then hopefully they don't take it the wrong way. So we're going to talk about the main parts of a plant. So you have the roots, which is at the bottom, the stem, the leaves, which are attached to the stem. You have flowers, you have fruiting bodies, which can be a whole nother thing because not all of the fruit is called fruit. You can call fruit vegetables and you can call fruit nuts. So that's another thing. And then you have the seed, which gets you to where you need to go, which is to have a plant. And so throughout this presentation, you'll see different parts of the plant that you can use for tea. And if you hear the words aerial parts, it just means all of the parts that touch air. So basically everything but the roots, because the roots are in the soil and technically they're not touching the air. Or you can just say above ground parts. That works too. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go to the next thing. So I love to talk about growing plants in general. So what is your growing medium? And I like to talk about this in a very accessible way because when I lived in Durham, not a lot of people had land. So they lived in apartments. So we had to accommodate for that. Or you rent and you can't dig into the ground, or you don't want to rent some type of tiller and dig up the ground. You just want to put in a raised bed. So I'm going to talk about the different growing mediums. So usually if you're growing in the ground, you might want to get a soil test because if you don't know the history of that soil before you got there, it's really important that you do know because there could be chemicals in it. And you can do that through the NC State Extension Office. And so we have one with Buncombe County. I think that April starts the season of free tests. And I might be wrong, but it is important to get a soil test if you're going to be growing in the ground. Usually whenever you're growing in the ground, you have topsoil, which is like the topmost layer of the earth, I guess you could say. And so you want to add some nutrients to it, like compost. And I mean compost as being plant matter and some animal matter that has decayed. So some people called food scraps compost. And in our technical world, that is not compost, that's food scraps. It isn't until it decays and worms eat and poop and do all these things that it becomes compost. So I just want to keep that in mind because someone asked me once, do you want some compost? And I was like, sure. And they were like, okay, it's all these food scraps. And I was like, oh, I don't want food scraps. I want compost. So that's the thing. And then you can add fertilizer. So yeah, I would add that the first year as well. Just really getting all those nutrients in the ground and getting your plants ready to take them up. So the next option could be raised beds. And so raised beds could be made out of anything. It could be made out of wood, cement blocks, rocks, logs. You can do lasagna gardening where there is no outer barrier. You just like layer things. So if that's something you're interested in, look up lasagna beds, vegetable beds. And it's a way of just like layering like grass clippings, cardboard, newspaper, woody material, layering it, and then it'll break down and hold so much nutrients. It's so amazing. But in raised beds, something I actually like to do on my spare time is I like to build raised beds for folks. So when I do that, I usually go to Lowe's and I get garden soil, which is a mixture of topsoil and or sand, compost, and mulch. Compost holds nutrients. So when you put compost in the beds, you don't really have to add fertilizer until year 2 or 3. So after you've had plants in it, especially if it's like a plant that is going to take up a lot of nutrients like tomatoes, you're definitely going to want to add some fertilizer after that. But usually when you put in compost in a raised bed, the garden soil has compost, then you're putting extra compost, so your nutrients should be fine. So that's a thing. And hopefully I'm not going too fast. And then we have containers, which is my love. I love growing in containers. It's just like an experiment every day.
No, my God.
What was that? Okay. I love growing in containers. I love seeing what I can grow in containers. Some things die and then I get really sad, but otherwise growing in containers is amazing. I've moved houses and brought my containered plants, vegetables, herbs with me. So I love that so much. So when you're using a container to grow in, you're going to use potting soil. And the reason why you're going to use potting soil is because it holds water. It has peat moss in it, and moss holds water. So that's usually what you're using in your house plants. So potting soil has compost in it, which has nutrients. It has peat moss in it, which holds water. And then it has perlite or vermiculite in it. And those vermiculite is, I'm probably going to get this backwards. I want to say vermiculite is the volcanic chips or something because it has a V, but I may be wrong. And perlite is a mineral. Just kidding, that's backwards. Vermiculite is a mineral and perlite is like volcanic something, I think. And those create space for water to percolate through and get to the bottom. And I could just go on about this. I've been in my house a lot, so I just really love talking about this stuff. But like, there's a difference between potting soil and like cactus soil. Cactus soil lets water go straight through it, and potting soil holds water. So you would be using potting soil, and your pot is going to have holes in it because it's going to be outside. So the water is just going to go out of it. And then sometimes potting soil has mulch, and that could be good or bad depending on what you're growing, because some seeds, mulch will just keep it from growing because it just blocks out too much sun or something like that. So yeah, those are things to look for when using a container. You're going to use potting soil. And then some containers you can grow in are plastic, like what you get your plants in, your house plants in. Like if you repot it into a different pot, you can use that plastic pot. It has holes in it. You can use fabric grow bags, which I love to use because the fabric grow bags have like holes in it. So there's like aeration. So you know how plants get root bound sometimes. It kind of helps with that because there's more air for the roots to just keep on moving and not just hit a wall and stop. And then there's also metal, tin. So if you just like, this can be a little weird with like rust and stuff, but I like to use some metal tin because it's like cheaper. So that's a thing. So I'm going to show you some examples of my house and the growing mediums I use, which I use all of these because I do too much. So the first photo on the left is this janky arbor I made for some sweet peas and some like snap peas or snow peas. I was hoping that was going to work out, and it didn't. But to the right of it, you can see some soil on the ground, and that was an in-ground bed I made. And so the first season last year, I put tomatoes in it. I had a lot of tomatoes in it. And now I put some tulips in there because I'm starting my own flower farm. And so it was just easy to do that at my house. I didn't test the soil. I just put a lot of soil on top, which I should have tested the soil. But I ate those tomatoes and I'm still alive. So we're good. And then on the right, you can see I have two raised beds. One is vegetables and the other one's herbs. And on the right is my herb bed. And so that was probably at the end of the summer. There's a lot of things in there like Tulsi, there's Mexican sage, there's comfrey, there is a nice hyssop, some echinacea, sage, Tulsi, lemon balm, catnip, hibiscus. I tried to grow some zinnias just to see how hard they would be. And then there was like some kale and some other stuff. So it was a great experiment. I love playing with seeing what grows. And I will mention that there was some stunted growth at the beginning because I put cardboard down to smother the grass, and it just took a little bit for the cardboard to decompose. So in the future, you should probably use like some newspaper, put newspaper down to just suffocate the grass so the weeds don't grow through. But these weeds are super weeds, so they go through it. And it's funny because we're going to be talking about weeds today. The definition of a weed is a plant you don't want there. And I want all my plants, so they're actually not weeds, but that's a thing. So on the left, I have some of those plastic containers that some plants came in, and that's rosemary and lavender in those pots. So I've been trying to see about growing shrubs in bigger pots. We're just going to see how it works. I'm going to try to grow some grapes and some blueberries. So we'll see. And then the photo on the right is a grow bag. And I didn't fully put soil in it. So I just rolled it down so the plants could have some more sunlight. And that is bee balm in that one. So yeah, that's a grow bag. And that bee balm is from last season. And I think bee balm is, I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, that's a grow bag, just so you know. They're pretty cheap on Amazon. I've seen them in some plant stores, but they're really expensive to me in the plant stores. So I would kind of get them off Amazon. But if you don't support Amazon, that's also your prerogative. And then we have a metal tin that I got on the left. It was for like putting iced drinks in it. And I drilled some holes in it and put some mint because I did not want mint spreading in my raised beds. So there's some plants, which is something I didn't put in my PowerPoints, but I can tell you. Some plants are a big word called stoloniferous, and that means that they creep above the ground. And some of them are rhizomatous, and that means they creep below the ground. And so that just means they spread really easily, like ground ivy and things like that. So I put those in containers because I didn't want them spreading into my garden. And then the one on the right is comfrey, which I did not talk about today because it is also a plant that is mainly used for the outer skin. I use it for salves, and it's a good fertilizer. You can put it in a bucket and put some water in it and put a lid on it and let it ferment, and it becomes really great fertilizer, and it smells horrible. So you know that means it's working. But that's another container because also comfrey just like goes crazy. So, man, it's already 5:30. So these are the stages of my herbal garden. The photo on the left is how I started. I was using square foot gardening, which like totally didn't matter because these plants just do whatever they want. And so that's how I started on the left. And there's some hoops on top of it. So I covered it up when it got cold. And then on the right is a couple months or weeks later, you can see some zinnia. There's some dandelion in there, which I didn't know what it was whenever I got it. Someone just gave it to me for free and I planted it. There's some hibiscus and some kales and other things in the right one. And then I put cardboard down around my beds just to suppress the weeds and grass. And yeah, there's in the back in that photo on the left, there's a sativa plant that died and didn't come back. So that's sad because they're really hard to germinate. So that's the thing. And then on the left is like later in the season, this photo. It's just nice and luscious. And then on the right was a couple weeks ago. So it died, everything kind of, I believe in like, if it doesn't really get through the winter, then oh well. So I kind of want some resilient things. And so you see some lemon balm, some sage, there's a random snapdragon in there, bee balm, a nice hyssop, and catnip and oregano and some parsley. And then some of that grass you see is actually oats. So oats and red clover are actually really great cover crops. And so they also are really good medicine. So I'm using them as a cover crop to amend the soil. And then I'm also going to use them for medicinal reasons. And so you can see on the left, that was today. all that grass is actually oats. And it's kind of stressing me out, but kind of not, because I know it's going to bring medicine, but it just looks so messy. And then the plant on the right is my bee balm. It's so tall right now. I'm really excited about that plant. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing right quick and check in with everyone. Katie Cox, I just learned comfrey is also a dye plant. Oh yeah, I didn't even get into dyes because I wanted you guys to have an evening at all. Like if I keep talking, you guys will never leave or go to sleep. Are there any questions? I'm just gonna wait like 5 minutes and see if there's some questions. And that is totally okay if there aren't, but I'm just going to hold space just in case anyone's typing. I don't want to cut them off.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you typically prefer, I guess maybe this just depends on the plant, but like direct seeding versus getting seedlings?
Yeah. So to start, when I first started, I got starts, because some plants are kind of hard. So like chamomile is one of those plant. Okay, fun fact. Most seeds do not need light. They do not need sunlight to germinate. They need water and humidity and sometimes heat. So chamomile is actually a plant that needs light to grow. And so it is just so hard. It also needs heat, like some heat. I use heating mats. So there's just some plants that I recommend getting a start. And or if you're just trying to get your garden going, get some starts, but they can get costly. And so I'm all about being frugal, and I just love testing. Like I just love being a scientist. So I will try to see things myself. If you have roommates, they may not like that, or partners, because then you have plants everywhere and no one can eat at the kitchen table. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I think it depends on your time restraint and how much energy you're wanting to give. In the beginning, I did not have time to seed. I just wanted my plants to make medicine. So I just bought like all starts and then threw some seeds in there just to see what they would do. But if you have time and you have an established garden already and you just want to try something new, I always recommend seeds. I think it makes you appreciate the plant more when you know how hard it is to grow it, or like how difficult, or like what it goes through. So that's just something I particularly like. But if you got the monies, just buy, and you know how the plant was grown, just buy a start. I think those work fine.
Thank you. I like what you really said about like starting from seed and like really going through that process of
Yeah.
like growing and everything.
Yeah, I think once you start growing, if you haven't already, but when you start growing plants and food, you will really appreciate what you eat and what you buy and who grows it, because some things are just like so hard, like tomatoes. I don't know what it is, but I don't like tomatoes. They're so hard, but they're really delicious. Cool. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And if you have any more questions, you can put them in the chat. But this is about to be like the part with all the information. So just let me know if you want me to stop. If you're going to take notes, there's a lot of big words. I may not say them at all or say them right. I may try, who knows. I do want to preface with the fact that I acknowledge other cultures' plant science. So some of the information I got is from other cultures and may not be tested in Western science or Western medicine, but I do value and recognize and use those plant benefits for what they have been orally passed down to do. So I believe in those things, and I also believe in Western plant science and medicine. So I just wanted to preface that. Are there any tea herbs you can seed this late in the spring? Asking for a friend. Right. I'm always late to every season. So this is a question in the chat. I'm late to every season, so it's totally fine. So I think that you would be fine seeding like just about anything. It's just the amount of plant you're going to get. It might not be that much, or you might not get a flower, but you could probably seed like calendula right now, which is a plant I like to drink. It is a summer annual, and it will seed everywhere. So if you don't want calendula seeds everywhere or plants everywhere, you need to like deadhead, which means like cut off the flower head before it goes to seed and seed everything. Tulsi, we're going to talk about Tulsi. Tulsi goes crazy as well, and it's a summer annual or warm season. I will mention that in each plant if that's okay, because I can also go on about that. But I'm just going to go based off the plants we have on this one. So this section, we're going to do herbal tea plant profiles. Why is it not doing anything? Okay. So first off, we're starting with one of my favorite plants, and it is lemon balm. Lemon balm's science. So I'm going to put the science, the Latin name, scientific name, all those things is going to be the first bullet point. So this one is Melissa officinalis, and I say things how they're spelled sometimes and not how they're supposed to be said. So that's the thing. But I love lemon balm so much. It is in the mint family, and you're going to see that a lot of the plants that I go through today are in the mint family. It is a perennial, which means that it stays alive every year. An annual lives for 1 year and then dies. Perennials will stay alive for however long they can. And so the origin of this plant is native to Southern Europe, Western Asia, and Northern Africa. And I love this plant because it is an antidepressant. And I will disclaim that I am on antidepressants. So I love plants that are really good for your nerves. I have a lot of anxiety. And so this one's a great plant, and it's also good for your gut. So it's a carminative, which means that it is anti-gas. And I don't know, a lot of people out there, have me included, have sensitive stomachs, or we eat things that we're not supposed to, like dairy. So that one's a good one for me. It's like a ritual almost, like I'll drink it after I eat food. So it is such a great plant. It's also an antiviral, which means it is antivirus, which is what's going on everywhere now in the world, is the coronavirus. So I was drinking a lot of lemon balm. It's good for your immunity, and it just doesn't hurt. Like, it just can't hurt. It's antispasmodic, which means that if you have spasms in your muscles, it can help relax them. It increases sweating, and it's antimicrobial, all those good things. So I love lemon balm. And usually you drink the aerial parts. Well, you drink the aerial parts. So that means the leaves, basically. I haven't really seen one with a flower yet. So that's the thing. But you just cut it. That's a whole nother conversation. Yes, you use the aerial parts for drinking tea. So you can just cleanse them and then dry them. You can hang them up from the window, which is what I usually do, and dry them and then use them in a tea. And they have a really nice lemon scent. So lemon balm is my go-to. Like, I'll drink that every day. I'll drink it for breakfast, dinner, right before bed. It doesn't matter. You can drink that all the time. Lemon balm's the best. And then this is a lemon balm plant that's in my backyard. I took this picture today. So I'm going to show you like the just a regular picture, and then I'll show you what it looks like in my garden or around my house. So this is my nice, luscious lemon balm plant, and I'm trying to let it get a little bigger before I start harvesting from it. Usually you want to harvest like a third or fourth. Just be gentle because it has to have time to bounce back. And if other people are harvesting from it, you don't want to kill it. So you'll learn about that. You'll know if you harvest too much. Our next plant is peppermint and or spearmint, which is in the mint family, which is Lamiaceae, whatever that word is. I also think it's called the sage family. So yeah, there's a lot of things in the mint family, and you can tell because they have that perpendicular leaf pattern. So there's like a 90-degree angle of the leaves, and that's something that you can tell a mint plant usually, or a plant in the mint family. It is also a perennial, and its origin is a mystery. It dates back to 100 BCE or 1000 BCE in Egypt, and it's now highly cultivated. It's everywhere. Peppermint is actually a hybrid of watermint and spearmint, and the mint is great. It's amazing. It's antispasmodic, stimulates sweating, carminative, antimicrobial, analgesic, which just like relieves pain, anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic again, obviously. A nervine, which is really good. It like helps you relax, which is something I'm always trying to drink, something that's going to help me relax. Anti-emetic, which means that it could help stop vomiting. So emetic means you're going to vomit, and anti means you're not going to vomit. And then I put analgesic again. And so usually you eat drink the aerial parts, which are going to be the leaves, because I still haven't seen one with flowers, I don't think. And it has a very strong scent, and it's a great scent. I also like to burn mint, so that's something I do too, is I burn it, or I use it in salves. And it has some vitamins, B1, B3, and C, and some minerals, iron, calcium, potassium, magnesium. So mint is just great, and that's why everyone loves it usually. And so here are some of my mint plants. I guess I wish I could do a pop quiz of which one is spearmint and which one's peppermint, but I'll go ahead and tell you. The first one on the left is, drumroll, peppermint. The one in the middle is spearmint, unless I bought them very wrong. That's how I bought them. And then the one on the right, I propagated. So I cut it from someone else's plant and I put it in water. It got roots, and then I put it in the ground, and that is chocolate mint. And chocolate mint, I see chocolate mint way more than I see any of the other mints. So I really wanted to get spearmint and peppermint and like have them as different, but they have a lot of the same properties. And those are all in containers. And then we have catnip, which I also love a lot. It is in the mint family, and it is also perennial. Its origin is native to Europe, and I don't know what that thought was about. So native to Europe, it stimulates sweating, carminative, settles the stomach. It's a sedative, so it like helps you like calm yourself, reduces fever, anti-flatulent, which also has to do with gas, I believe. It helps with colds and flu, menstrual cramps, and it's a nervine. So it helps with mental health. It helps with your stomach. And yeah, it's just a really great plant. So I tend to drink that a lot too. I usually mix things with bee balm or with lemon balm, because lemon balm tastes really good. It tastes like lemon. So catnip has this like really very specific taste, and I've heard a lot of people say it tastes like how like marijuana smells. So that's the thing. So I mix it with lemon balm. I mix everything with lemon balm because lemon balm tastes so good. So you usually use the aerial parts, which are going to be the leaves, and it has the vitamins B3, B6, and B12. And the minerals are calcium, potassium, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, and sodium. And this is my catnip plant. And it actually kind of looks like nettle if you look at it. So that's the thing. But it's getting really big, and I also like to give it to my cat because she goes really, it's really funny to watch her eat it, and she like salivates everywhere, and it's kind of funny. And I've seen people make catnip tea for their cat. So if your cat doesn't drink enough water, make it some catnip tea. The next plant is bee balm. I also love bee balm. I just love all plants, so that's the thing. Monarda, there's a lot of bee balm. So Monarda is the genus for that plant, and so there's a bee balm family. It's also known as wild bergamot, which kind of messed me up because I've seen bergamot as a essential oil, and I didn't know what it was as a plant, but it's basically just bee balm. And it's also in the mint family. It has that 90-degree angle with the leaves on the stem. It is a perennial. And I think it also seeds like crazy. So that's the thing. If you're going to put it somewhere, just let it be somewhere where it's going to be able to spread. And then its origin is endemic to North America. So endemic means that it only occurs in that area. So it only occurs in North America. So that's really cool. So it is antimicrobial, antispasmodic, carminative, headache. It relieves headache and fever. So such a great plant. I use it to make jelly because I love bee balm jelly. And I just put it on toast and eat it in the morning, and it is amazing. So if you want that recipe, I could send it to you. And you use the aerial parts. I really like using the flowers because bee balm comes in like purple, pink, and red. So the jelly can be different colors, and I really like red. So that's a thing. And here's another. So I showed you my bee balm plant in the front, and this one's in the back in the raised bed, and it's getting really, really tall. And I hope it doesn't die tonight in the cold weather. We're having a cold snap tonight, just so you know. So if you have plants outside, you want to cover them up or bring them inside. And then we have hyssop, which is not to be confused with anise hyssop, which is another plant, which is the plant I got on accident. So this is hyssop, and it kind of looks like rosemary in this picture, or lavender. And it is also in the mint family, and it's a perennial. It's native to Southern Europe, and it flowers in the summer. It is calming. It's an expectorant, which means that it helps you like cough out mucus or cough out something that's in your lungs. So anything having to do with lungs is really good to use in this time of a pandemic, because this virus affects our lungs. So it's also good for respiratory infections. So that's a thing. It's a sedative, which means it calms you. It helps with indigestion or gas, so it's good for the gut. It's helps relieve spasms in your muscles, unnerving, anti-inflammatory, and carminative. So it's just all around a great plant. And you use the aerial parts of this plant too. And I don't have this one yet, but I'm hoping to get it this weekend maybe, and we'll see how it goes. But hyssop is great. Then we have sage. Sage is also in the mint family, or also known as the sage family, and it is a perennial. So it stays, it lives on for years and years and doesn't die back every year. Its origin is native to the Mediterranean. It is an antiseptic. It is astringent, clears mucus. It's a nerve tonic, helps with sore throats. So if you have a sore throat, you can gargle with hot sage water, and it's really good. It helps poor indigestion. It helps hot flashes. I don't know if I should tell her business, but my grandma gets hot flashes, so I'm always like, drink some sage, just drink some sage. It's good for colds, congestion. It's antifungal, expectorant, diuretic, which means it helps you eliminate liquid like pee. It helps boost your memory. It's antimicrobial. It's a carminative, helps like relieve gas, and it's also antispasmodic. So you use the leaves on that one. And this is my my sage plant. It's coming back. I think it got like too cold and kind of died back a little bit, but it's growing and it's happy, and I'm happy for it. And I also like to burn sage. I want to make sure I don't say white sage. This is garden sage. White sage is very cultural to Native folks and Indigenous folks and some Latinx folks. So I don't recommend ever buying white sage or harvesting it if you're in West, if you're ever where it is, where white sage is. Get garden sage. It burns too. I burn it, so it's totally fine. So yeah, make sure you get garden sage and leave the plants to the folks who are the best at stewarding it and who it's for. We don't want to kill them all. And then we have rosemary, which is also in the mint family. So many mints. It is an evergreen perennial shrub, which means that it's woody. Fun fact, bush is not actually a word. So if you said bush in one of my classes, our professor would be like, what are you talking about? It's called a shrub. So that's the thing. Its origin is native to the Mediterranean. It's a nervine, it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, helps with your memory, with stress. I've seen that it's promising results of anti-cancer activity, is a carminative, antispasmodic, antidepressant, antimicrobial. So it's just all around a good plant. I love to drink this one too for anti-gas or trying to relieve gas. And I also love, love, love to burn this plant. This is my favorite plant to burn for just calming myself and clearing the energy around me. So I love to burn rosemary. And then some of the minerals that it has is phosphorus and potassium. And you use the leaves on these, on rosemary. And yeah, so that was rosemary. And then lavender, which usually rosemary and lavender go hand in hand. And lavender is also in the mint family, and it's a perennial shrub. There's a lot of different types of lavender, actually. So yeah, you should look into that. There's like French, English, Spanish. So those are a lot of the different ones. And it's native to France and the Western Mediterranean. It is antispasmodic. It relieves anxiety. It is an antidepressant, antimicrobial. It's a neuroprotective. It helps relieve insomnia, indigestion. It is a mood stabilizer. It is antioxidant. It's carminative. So it is so great for drinking for your stomach and for anxiety, for your brain. just to put you in a good mood. And it's also good to smell both of those, rosemary and lavender. I burn lavender too. I love to burn lavender, but I also put it in salves. So if I have it on my hands or I put it on my temples, I can smell it, put it at the base of my chin. I'll smell it. So that's nice. And you usually use the flowers. I also use the leaves. And these are my janky rosemary and lavender plants. They barely made it through the winter. I actually think the lavender died, so that's the thing. But the plants in the front are rosemary and the ones in the back are lavender, and they look really sad. I was actually really embarrassed to show you guys, but I was like, I got to do it for you. So there you go. And then we're going to talk about Tulsi. I love Tulsi. Tulsi is amazing. It also has the name holy basil, but it comes from India. It's native to India. So I use the Indian name, which is Tulsi. It is also in the mint family. And it is an annual, which means that it dies every season. So you have to buy a new one or you can seed save. It may reseed itself. Its origin is native to India and to tropical regions of Asia. And it is an antispasmodic, analgesic, lowers blood sugar levels, reduces fever. It's adaptogenic, which means that you might also hear this word with ashwagandha, but it helps your body adjust to stress. So, you know, if you're stressed out all the time or you have a stressful situation coming, you can start drinking it and it can help you adapt better to the stress. And yeah, maybe not have like anxiety attacks or panic attacks or things like that, breakdowns. So I love Tulsi because I always feel like I'm stressed. So I need, along with therapy, you can also drink this, and either way, you're going to figure out how to adjust. Also, it does some anti-inflammatory, lowers blood pressure. It is good for respiratory infections, and it's an antiviral. So why not drink it? Literally, why not? I don't know if I've sold you guys, but it's just an amazing plant. And you use the aerial part, so that's the leaves and the flowers. And so I also burn this plant. It is traditionally burned as well in India. So on the right is my plant during the summer. It was getting really huge. Like I had to harvest it like every week. It just kept growing and kept growing and kept growing. So I couldn't drink enough tea. So I started burning it. And that on the left is a picture of it hanging from my window. And I actually took that today. It's been hanging there for such a long time. So maybe it's keeping out some bad energy. Who knows? I'm going to leave it there because it kind of looks rustic and cute. So I'm going to leave it. And then we have calendula, which I used to call calendula because that's how you spell it. So calendula officinalis, it's also called a pot marigold, and it's in the aster family. So we have finally left the mint family. It is in the aster family. It's an annual. It dies back, but it also reseeds like nobody's business. So if you see it about to reseed, there's actually, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but what I'm circling right now in the lower left is one that's about to go to seed. And you would want to cut it off at that point so that it doesn't start seeding into all the ground if you don't want it there. But its origin is native to Southern Europe. It's an anti-inflammatory, relieves muscle spasm. It's astringent, prevents hemorrhaging. It heals wounds. So I use it a lot for salves. It is antimicrobial, detoxifying, mildly estrogenic, antifungal, and antispasmodic. And you use the flower heads. So, and they're really pretty and they smell so good. I love them so much. Like when you mess with them, like if you start cutting them and touching them, your fingers will smell like it like all day and it smells so good. So you use the flower heads in tea. And this is my, so you can have orange or yellow flowers, and this is my calendula plant. So this is from last summer, and I was making a flower essence, which there are many ways to make it, but this is the way that I learned to make it. And I really love that essence. I spray it on myself or drink it with some apple cider vinegar. So that's my plant. And then we have Greek oregano, or also known as wild marjoram, which was a whole nother word for me to learn. So you might see a marjoram or marjoram, I don't know how to say that word, or oregano. They're the same plant. And I think there's different types of oregano too. I think there's Roman, maybe, I can't remember. And so we're back in the mint family. This is a perennial. It creeps. It's stoloniferous, I believe, and it is native to Europe. It's antiseptic, antibacterial, antifungal, gastrointestinal, helps with the gut, respiratory tract, helps with your lungs if you're coughing, and it also helps with your gut flora. And if you don't know about gut flora, you should Google it, because I can't tell you much more than it's interesting. A lot of people worry about their gut flora, so that's the thing. But it's like very sciencey. So it provides vitamin C, and you use the aerial parts, which in this case are the leaves. And this is my oregano plant today coming back, and that is all oats around it. And then we have thyme, which is also in the mint family, and it is a shrub, but it looks like it creeps basically. Its origin, so it is cultivated from wild thyme, which is native to Southern Europe. Southern European. That's how my day's going. It is native to Southern Europe. It is antiseptic, relieves muscle spasm. It's an expectorant, so you can cough out things. It's antihelminthic, which means it expels worms. Antioxidant, helps with period pains, coughs, colds, helps with relieving gas, and it's antimicrobial, and it's something I also use in my salves as well. And you use the aerial parts, which are the leaves in this case. And this is my thyme plant. I actually don't know if this is ornamental thyme or not, which is a thing, but it smells good, and I use it mostly just in my salves. I might get another thyme plant that I know is regular thyme and not ornamental. And then, wow, it's 6 o'clock already. So I might try to move a little fast. I have a lot of plants on this list. So then we have German chamomile. There's also Roman chamomile, which does not have the same qualities as German chamomile. So if you're going to get chamomile to drink for its medicinal properties, you want to get the German variety. It's a part of the aster family, and it is an annual, which means that it dies every year. But my plant hasn't died, so I don't know about that. Its origin is native to Europe. It is an anti-inflammatory, anti-allergenic, antispasmodic. It relaxes, it helps with gas, it relieves PMS, it helps with indigestion, or it helps with digestion, menstrual cramps. It's a nervine and antimicrobial, and has some vitamins like B1 and C, and it has minerals like iron and calcium, and you use the flower heads, which are those really cute things right there. And this is my plant. It looks really sad. I also was really embarrassed to post this one too, but I think it just needed some water, or it just might be the cold. So it's getting really big. It didn't used to be this big, so I'm really excited for the plants to come, or the flowers to come this season. Then you have yarrow, which is another one of my favorite plants. It's in the aster family. It is a perennial, and it's native to Europe and Western Asia. It is antispasmodic, astringent. It increases sweating, lowers blood pressure, reduces fever. It is a mild diuretic, anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic, diuretic. I already put that. Promotes menstruation, antimicrobial, and it has some vitamins like B1 and C, and minerals like calcium, manganese, and magnesium. And then you use the aerial parts, but actually you can use the root too. Or can you? Maybe I just made that up. It has a taproot. No, I actually forgot. But you can use the flower heads, which is cool. And I burned this one too, and it isn't that great. So I wouldn't burn it if that's something you're into. And this is my yarrow plant, and it is going wild. And I'm so happy because I love the way it feels. It's such a soft plant. And then we have echinacea, which a lot of you probably know as purple coneflower. There's 3 species of echinacea. It's in the aster family. It's a perennial. Maybe this is what I meant by using the roots. So it's native to central parts of the US. It's an immune modulator, so it like helps your immune system. It's antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, detoxifying, stimulates saliva, and heals wounds. So this one was very popular during the beginning of the pandemic because it's really good for your immune system. But I think that you also have to take it with caution because you don't want to take too much of it. And it has vitamins F, And it's also, you use the roots and you can use the flower head. And this is my echinacea plant. So I put it in as a very small plant, so it hasn't even made a flower yet, but I think it takes like 2 or 3 years to get established. So you should just get on it now. Yeah. And then we have red clover, which is also a cover crop. It is in the legume family, so the beans. Right? Yeah, the beans, the beans. It's a perennial, native to Europe and Asia. It is nitrogen fixing, and that's why people use it as a cover crop. It's traditionally used to treat breast cancer, and it's an expectorant. It helps with spasmodic coughs, relieves menopausal symptoms. It has vitamins B1 and C, minerals, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and you use the flower head, which are these really cute pink flowers. All right, so we're almost done, I promise. It is 6:05. So we have herbal tea plants to forage, and forage means that you go out in nature and you find the plants and you cut them, harvest them, and take them home. So it's going out and finding plants in their natural environment is how I would explain that. So one of the best plants of all time is dandelion. It is and it's probably one of the most hated weeds. It is in the aster family. It's a perennial. Its origin, it grows wild in most parts of the world, actually. And I noted that the roots are more nutritious than the flowers and leaves, but they're still all edible. The leaves are diuretic. The roots have anti-cancer activities. The roots are just detoxifying, helps with constipation, skin problems, is a prebiotic. The leaves are bitters and they're really used in salads. You can see the root used for a coffee supplement. And so if you're trying to get off of coffee, this tastes very similar, but it doesn't have any caffeine. So you can just get the root, cut it up, grind it into some powder. Well, you dry it first and then grind it into powder and use it as instant coffee, basically. And it's good for the kidneys and liver support, and it also can be a laxative. It has a lot of vitamins, A, B1, B5, H, C, D, E, F, G. Didn't even know those were all vitamins. Minerals like potassium, calcium, zinc, magnesium, iron, and you use the leaves and the roots. So this one's actually one you can see in grocery stores in the produce section. The leaves are used for like salads and stuff like that. And this is a wild dandelion plant in my backyard, and I wouldn't use it because it's in a lawn, which I'm going to talk about. You don't know what's happened to that lawn, if there's been like weed killer in it, herbicides and stuff. But it's in my backyard, everywhere actually. And then probably fighting for the spot of the most hated plant is plantain. You have broadleaf and narrowleaf. They're both perennials. Origin is native to Europe and temperate regions of Asia. It is a diuretic, expectorant, anti-mucus, demulcent, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, astringent. So it's really good actually for first aid things, but you can also drink it as a tea. It's good for wounds and scratches and stings. And like, if you don't have a Band-Aid, you can like put it in your mouth, chew it up, and then spit it out. It's called a spit poultice or a poultice, and you can put it on like wherever you need to put it on your body. So you use the leaves and the aerial parts, like the flower seed pod thingies. And this is a plantain in my backyard, broadleaf plantain. It's also known as white man's foot or European man's foot because whenever the colonizers first came to America, they brought this plant with them. And so native folks would know that white people had been in an area if they saw this plant. So I love telling folks about that. It's called white man's foot. You also have violet. It is a perennial. I don't know if I said this, but these are plants that I would actually not grow, but I would forage because they occur a lot in the wild. So that's the thing. So violet is a perennial. I believe it's a spring annual or spring ephemeral. So it like flowers in the spring. It is origin is native to Europe and Asia. It's an expectorant, demulcent. It's light sweating. It helps with coughs, chest colds, congestion, breast and stomach cancer. And the root is a good expectorant and emetic, what makes you vomit. So you can use the leaves, the roots, and the flowers. And a lot of people use the flowers in culinary arrangements. So you would see it on top of some things or in a drink. So yeah, they're edible. And there's a lot of violets in my backyard. So this is one of the ones in my backyard. Then we have nettle. I don't grow nettle at all because it spreads like crazy. It's a perennial. It's also called stinging nettle because it will sting you. So you better wear gloves when you harvest it. But it is an amazing herb. Its origin is in temperate regions, is a diuretic and astringent, anti-allergenic, anti-inflammatory, prevents hemorrhaging, reduces prostate enlargement. It's an expectorant and a diuretic, which I already said at the beginning. I don't know why I keep doing that. Vitamin C and B complex, minerals, so many minerals, calcium, potassium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, iodine, sodium, and then high in protein. And nettle is something I've heard to use for menstruation. So it might make you start your period. If you're like late or something, it helps, and it might relieve cramps maybe. I can't remember. I forgot to put that down. I'm just remembering. But you can use the aerial parts, the roots, and the seeds. But just remember to wear gloves. And actually, I lied. Someone just gifted me a nettle plant, and it's still in the container. So we'll see what happens to that plant. It's probably going to get put in a grow bag. Then we have mugwort, which is probably the top two or three of most hated plants. Artemisia, it's in the aster family. It's a perennial. Its origin is in the temperate regions of the northern hemisphere, but it is such a great plant. Good for digestion, improves your appetite, antiseptic, eliminates worms, mildly induces onset of menstruation. It is also unnerving, and I love burning it. It's a great plant to burn. It's also used in Chinese medicine for burning, and acupuncture. And you can use the leaves and the roots. So we are almost at the end here, and this is my precautionary section. Please beware is what I put on there. Mugwort is a lucid plant, so you can either burn it or actually smoke it to have lucid dreams. So that's the thing. Someone put in here, mugwort is super helpful to burn for nightmares in my experience. Yeah, I've also heard just lucid dreams. So if you're a dreamer, if you like to be in tune with your dreams, and me, I don't dream that well, so I have tried it because I wanted to know what I dream about. And some people use their dreams to figure out things that are going on in their life and stuff. So if you like to burn or smoke herbs, that is one to do. So beware, precautionary section. So when foraging, harvest in public areas unless given permission on private land, because that is a big issue. We've seen it in national parks with poaching, like ginseng and galax for the I just said that real country. Galax for the floral industry, and probably another big one I'm not thinking of right now. But ginseng is a huge one. Oh yeah, ramps. Ramps are so unsustainably harvested, and it ruins. We're just trying to preserve the ramps. You want to harvest from healthy soils. So I don't really forage that much because I want to know the soil. Because if I'm going to give it to someone or ingest it myself, I don't want to have any chemicals in it. Get a second or third opinion on plant IDs, and I'm going to give you so many recommendations for Facebook pages. So everyone goes on there and puts a plant. And I will say you can also buy dried herbs, but I think that defeats the whole purpose of herbalism. It's supposed to be accessible. And when you start buying dried herbs, it gets really expensive. So I'm really pro foraging and growing your own herbs so that it is actually accessible, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing and not turning into a capitalist little bit there. So don't harvest from flower beds because they probably have herbicides in them for weeds, under power lines where you see dog feces, in lawns because there's probably weed killer in it, near urban streams because you don't know what's in that stream. It could be runoff from cars and things like that, or dumped in, and then also along roads because of emissions from cars and oils and other things. When practicing herbalism, do your research on individual plants. So even though I've told you a lot about these plants, still do your own research. It's just important because you're putting it in your body, and your body is a temple. So you're trying to protect yourself. So Google is your best friend. Just before I got on here, I was Googling to make sure what I actually said was right. That happens a lot. Consult your doctor if you're on medication. So like I said, some plants alter pharmaceutical medication, and I said I'm on antidepressants. So people on antidepressants should not be using St. John's wort because it will basically keep your antidepressants from working. Just like hawthorn is not good to use if you're on blood pressure medicine. And if you're on HIV/AIDS medication, St. John's wort is also not one you want to use, I'm pretty sure. And echinacea is also one that if you take it in large quantities, it could be bad. It could have adverse effects. So that's why I put at the bottom, dosage it matters. Large quantities may cause adverse effects like vomiting or nausea, or they could also inhibit your medication from working. So it is important to research what you're going to put in your body, especially if you're on medication, or you may have health effects that you don't even know about. So just get yourself checked out and just listen to your body. And if you do drink something, drink it in small dose, and then just like listen to your body and see if it likes it or if it doesn't like it. And then recommendations I didn't put on here, but if you're going to buy dried herbs, I usually buy from Mountain Rose Herbs. That is a nice sweet store. And I didn't put places to get seeds either. Wow, I'm really messing up. But if you're looking for medicinal seeds, strictly medicinal seeds is a really good one. Also, Southern Exchange Seed Exposure. Southern Seed Exposure Seed Exchange. I think I said that backwards. I'm pretty sure that's Black owned. Has to do with Ira Wallace, who has written some really great books on growing food and seed saving. And then also So True Seed, of course, and Johnny Seeds, which is a larger corporation. So I would go to them last and try to keep it small. So recommendations for books. A lot of the books that I use, I went through like so many different books. So I have a list of books right there. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I do do a lot of work in different other cultures. So like African and African American enslaved traditional medicines, Middle Eastern. So a lot of Middle Eastern food is really great to eat because it has a lot of spices and herbs in it that are medicinal. So I've learned to start using more spices in a medicinal way and making my food medicine. So another recommendation I have is talk to your elders about traditional plants that they've used. Explore cultural herbalism. So whatever culture you're in, there's probably some herbal plants that your ancestors or elders have used because not everyone can afford pharmaceutical medicine. So also, it's just a great thing to do. Just talk to your elders in general. They probably want to talk to you. Explore Chinese medicine, indigenous, Cherokee plant medicine, Latinx plant medicine. I've done a plant or an herbalism course with some Latinx folks, some Ayurveda. I can never say that word. Ayurveda. Woo! That has to do with some Middle Eastern or Indian things, and they do a lot of herbalism, African medicine, African American enslaved plant medicine traditions, Middle Eastern medicine, and also Middle Eastern food, which is also medicine. So I've listed some Facebook groups, some that are more for Black and brown folks and queer folks, and then also just like learning how to grow your own stuff at home. They love to answer those questions because just like me, we love talking plants. They just might have more time than I do. And then I put some Instagrams on here of some of my favorite folks or local folks. A lot of them are Black herbalist or community herbalist or just some good organizations. So those are some Instagrams right there for you. Wow, we're almost, yeah, we're on time. So thank you so much for listening to me rant. It looks like half you guys dropped out, and I'm so sorry, but I have a lot of cool things to tell you. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for being here and taking the time to listen. So I'll hold some space for folks if they have any questions. Oh, you guys are so amazing. You're going to help me sleep really great tonight. You guys are awesome. So